Hello, my name is Mustafa, and this will be the first video I record on this channel. In this video I'm going to be talking about something that is very interesting and quite mind-boggling, which I find important, so I'm going to start discussing it. Now, in the free world, we have an idea of something called social liberalism. You know, the idea that racism, misogyny, homophobia, bigotry, and all those other things don't belong in a civilized, humane society. Now, social liberals should be opposed to all sorts of things that I've stated, such as misogyny, homophobia, racism, animal abuse, and bigotry. Well, at least we like to hope that is. Because the fact of the matter is that today, if you go on any liberal news media network, especially the most famous one of all, MSNBC, you will see quite a few videos about Islam. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, Islam is a far-right, political, and bigoted religious dogma that probably has caused a lot of human suffering. And trust me, we already had Christianity before that, and the Catholic Church has caused enough misery as it is. I mean, Islam on top of that, not a good combination for human happiness. Well, needless to say, many members of the liberal left will go out of their way to defend radical Islam. You guessed it. Liberals will go out of their way to defend a right-wing ideology. I mean, if you want a lack of consistency, this is probably the best place to look. I mean, just turn on MSNBC one day, and you will hear reports about how Muslims are persecuted in the Western world, how Muslims don't get human rights, and how there will always be members from some Middle Eastern country like Saudi Arabia or Pakistan talking about the lack of human rights Muslims have. Isn't that kind of ironic? Saudi Arabians talking about a lack of human rights. Some more inconsistency for you right there. Now, I don't know about you, but I really don't like targeting people personally. That's why I would never go to a group that is a group of family members who I can tell are Muslims and start harassing them. So please don't accuse me of being an anti-Muslim in the comments section. What I am, though, is anti-bigotry, anti-animal abuse, anti-misogyny, and anti-destruction. So I am anti-Islam for all you PC liberals out there. I don't mean to. I should just let you know that I might offend. Now, 40% of young Muslim males in Britain want to live under Sharia law. So, under such circumstances, you can kiss goodbye to your alcohol, cannabis, premarital sex, and women's rights. And gays, don't even think about walking around in public anymore, because you will have stones flying at your head. And every year in Europe there are thousands of reports of so-called honor killings and honor violence. And no surprise here, it's usually women who suffer from these. So, I don't know about you, but this seems pretty, unliberal, so maybe it should be criticized and confronted. maybe, just maybe, a little bit of less time should be spent on people who we already know as whack jobs, like Sarah Palin and Ann Coulter, and focus on the other radicals who are actually not afraid to throw rocks at your head. Because last time I checked, not even Ann Coulter has thrown a rock at someone's head. Not saying she won't, because with a brain that size, I'm sure anything is possible. At least she's getting pies thrown at her. That's quite amusing. Now, since liberals are so reluctant to ever criticize Islam, guess who gets to criticize Islam? The far right. Isn't that great? Warmongers, people who support things like the Patriot Act, do you really want them to look like they have higher moral standards than you? Because that's pretty pathetic. When liberals are not afraid to confront a far-right ideology, and members of the right do it. Consistency still lacking. Now, personally, I enjoy my civil liberties. I think you have you should have freedom of expression. Unfortunately, you have freedom of religion, but you also have freedom from religion. And I don't like the government violating your civil liberties. So things like the Patriot Act and the NDAA are not going to solve the problem of radical Islam. Only social liberals who actually confront the problems and stop all the bigotry and propaganda that goes inside the mosques all over the world in their countries can stop the problems. Now, I really don't think... I know a lot of liberals who watch this video are going to call me a racist, a Islamophobe. Now, that's another term you hear all the time, Islamophobia. Last time I checked, a phobia is an irrational fear of something. Trust me, being afraid of radical Islam is not irrational. Especially if you're a woman, a Jew, or especially if you're a homosexual. I mean, I think somewhere in the Muslim world you will hear about at least one person being buried up to their necks in rocks and being stoned to death, even by their own family members. And this isn't only happening in places like Iran and Saudi Arabia. It's happening in the UK, the Netherlands, Canada, even here in the US. I don't think it's rational to be afraid of that. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I don't know about you, but I'm personally afraid of stones being thrown at people's heads. Now, fortunately, some groups that are considered liberal do stand up to Islamic atrocities. For instance, PETA, whatever you'd like to call them, had a recent article. They have articles on this quite a lot, actually, of the torture that goes on in halal butcher shops. And I'm glad they do things like this, because animal welfare is also something I support. Hopefully this video will change the minds of some of the people I were referring to in this video, the social liberals who go out of their way to defend radical Islam, which is still a big problem, because whenever I see some MSNB host talking about Islam, it's usually very positive. And for some reason they think that submissiveness and peace have the same meaning. I think they need to check Webster's dictionary. Honest opinion. Now, another thing, I know that I will also be called a warmonger and a Muslim hater at the end of this video. Look, in all honesty, there's one thing I should state though. our adventures into foreign lands, where we end up going into all these Middle Eastern countries and bombing it, and basically burning buildings to the floor, in the ideas of spreading democracy, are a horrible idea. I don't believe in unconstitutional and undeclared war. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty libertarian about such ideas, so I don't want to be accused of that either. Also, by the way, if you went to countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia, you're not going to get these people to get rid of theocracies. Because, trust me, if the majority likes the risk of being stoned to death, they're going to keep it. Now, fortunately, there are many secularists in these countries fighting such abuse, and I'm very glad for that. Hopefully they will prevail one day. But you can't go to a country and try to overthrow a government in the hopes of spreading democracy. Now, Pat Condell had a very great quote relating to such an idea. You can get a horse to water, but you can't get it to suck your cock. Well, I hope you enjoyed your video, and hopefully I changed some minds and you enjoyed this. I'll make more videos next time. Have a good night.